Hi, my name is Rex and I am a dead man walking, and I want to share some of my story with you in the hope that it might be help or an encouragement to you or to someone you love, and to let you know that you're not alone and that there is a future beyond what you can see right now. I'm 52 years old. I was born in 1973, and I've been married 21 years to my wife Amanda Jane, and we have raised two children. Our children are 20 and 19 years old, and we live in Taranaki in New Zealand. I've been blessed with good health generally all my life. I have had an ongoing battle, I guess you'd say, with periodic chronic fatigue syndrome, which came in bouts over a number of years. I think it's linked to a vaccine to which I had a bad reaction many years ago, a tetanus vaccine, and and it's been ever since then on and off, the chronic fatigue at various times. But I've managed to work with that a little bit better over time by controlling the level of strain, both physical and emotional, at various times. And there definitely seems to be a correlation between those factors and how much the chronic fatigue affects me. My knowledge of cancer in my body came quite suddenly, and I didn't really suspect prior that I had it. I probably had all the fears that many people do have, and you feel a bit of pressure here, or you feel a bit of pain there, or whatever from time to time, and you worry. But I didn't really have any indications. And how it all started was I had been doing a postgraduate post-experience paper, and I was down in Wellington, about 4.5-5 hours drive away, doing the final presentation for that one Friday afternoon. And after I'd finished that, I knew that I was feeling a bit unwell on that afternoon in my stomach, and then I drove up a couple of hours on the way back to where we live here in Taranaki, to Palmerston North, and visited my mum and dad and my sister there on the way back, and stayed overnight. And that evening I did have a little bit of, just a small amount of diarrhea, so it wasn't a rush, it was just a little bit, and that was a little bit odd because it didn't come with anything else. I hadn't had it quite like that before, I didn't think, and but there was nothing else. And then the following day I still didn't feel that well in my stomach, came home, and a couple of days later I had still not passed any bowel motions, and so I thought to myself, this isn't so good. And so I went to the doctors, and the doctors thought it was constipation. I told them I didn't think it was, because I could almost, I knew what constipation felt like, the pressure and the pain especially, and there was no pressure or pain at the other end, and I could sort of point to a spot where I felt like there might be a blockage. But anyway, they gave me some stuff that creates a sort of a foamy, it expands things inside your stomach and hopefully allows it to move and not be quite so solid. And so I tried that for some more days, and I think after about 4 days in total, it might have been the 5th day, things were clearly not right. I still hadn't had a proper bowel motion. I'd had a tiny bit, but not much, and I by the end of that afternoon on the Friday, around about 4:30, I was trying to vomit, but I couldn't vomit because the constipation remedy stuff had actually turned everything to a sort of an expanded foam type stuff inside. It was quite solid, and so I'd vomit, but it was like dry retching, even though the matter was actually up there, right up to my throat. And so my breath smelt like feces, and it was just pretty awful. And so we knew that we really had to go to the emergency department. So my wife took me up there to the hospital, and and they immediately put a cannula drip in my arm, which they normally do. From my experience, when I go up to emergency department, that means they can quickly and easily administer things like painkillers or do blood tests, all that sort of thing, once they've got a needle already there in your arm. And they gave me some anti-nausea medications, and that was sweet relief. It was really good. And they also gave me some other stuff, I think, to help with the discomfort. And then later that night, they decided to send me for a CT scan, and which they did, and that was with contrast, I think, a dye that was meant to show if there was cancer or anything else and highlight it. And of course, I went up for the CT scan. By now it was the middle of the night. And an hour or so after the CT scan was completed, a serious looking fellow who also was kind, by the name of Charlton, came through, and he gently explained to us that I had a large tumour that was entirely blocking my bowel. It was about 45-50 millimetres across in size, and so it was completely blocking things. And they explained that emergency surgery there and then was the only option for me, that if we left it, I'd be dead the next day. And he explained that it was risky surgery. I could die during it because everything was already blown up very big inside of my body, and it would be a difficult surgery, and I could die during surgery, or I think obviously the risk of infection from what exploded out would also be fairly large. So I think he asked how I felt, which was, I think, a very good question, and it just showed a bit of care and sensitivity, and I very much appreciated his thoughtfulness. And I told him that I knew where I was going if I died, and that I was okay. And but it certainly wasn't the great news that I would have hoped for, and it was a bit of a shock, really, to have that lumped on when you hadn't really been expecting it. So the staff gave us a bit of time together after that. Well, they intended to, but it wasn't really much time, because they called in the emergency, they called in the surgeons and everything. By now it was early hours of the morning, so they roused them out of bed and got them on the way. And the staff came and went and put gowns and did different things to prepare me for surgery. And so my wife and I got a little bit of time together in amongst that. And it wasn't much time, really, certainly not much uninterrupted time. So we discussed things, and we signed the necessary documents for the emergency surgery, and my wife held the phone for me so that I could record a message for our children for if I didn't make it through the surgery alive. And that was a bit of an emotional time together, and there wasn't really time to do much, but our children didn't know the seriousness of what was going on, and we thought it was probably better, since it was the middle of the night, not to disturb them. There was nothing they could do, and so we thought it was better that way, rather than telling them at that time in the middle of the night. And so the theatre staff arrived, and they prepped me up the rest of the way for surgery, and they kindly gave me some medication that was lovely calming medication beforehand as well. They were very kind, super professional, and I've got the utmost respect for their professionalism and their care. I don't like being woken in the early hours of the morning at the best of times, and to think they came out at that awful time of night to do such a big job that was going to be many hours long, and the professionalism, kindness they showed, not the least bit of frustration or anything. It was just amazing. And so they took me into the operating theatre room, and they explained to me really well what was going to happen, and I drifted off into La La Land, and my wife went to wait out the rest of the night alone with her thoughts.